Welcome to the blue ocean of compliance tips. Today we are going to discuss about the documentation and record. You know that documentation is the basic element of CGMP. Whenever you do any documentation, so please ensure that you have to follow the LQA principle. LQA principle you must be knowing, LQA plus principle. Attributable, contemporaneous, legible, original and accurate. So you have to ensure that you must follow the LQA principle. Whenever in CGMP, doing mistake is not a crime, right? But how you correct that mistake, that matters, that is important. So whenever you by mistake you want to write something and by mistake you have written something, so what you have to do? You have to do the single cut and you sign with date, and you have to write the justification that why the mistakes has happened. So if you will follow this, so there is no issue that by mistake you have written something and you wanted to write something. Another thing is that the record should be retained. Yes, based on your policy and guidance, the documents to be retained for their retention period. This retention period is decided based on the guidelines and your policy. So there are few documents which are to be retained for life cycle plus 1 year. You will ask that you want to know that which are those documents those are to be kept for life cycle for 1 year. There are few examples I am telling you. Development report, clinical trial reports and data, right? So that you will have to retain for life cycle plus 1 year. So any data supporting for IND and NDA studies, bioequivalence studies data, that you will have to retain for life cycle plus 1 year, right? And training records are also to be kept for life cycle plus 1 year. There are different documents, and based on the guidance and your policy, the documents are to be retained, right? Another thing is that revision history. First thing is that the document should be reviewed periodically. There should be some guidance in your SOPs. It should be defined that when you are going to revise your documents, for example the SOP. So whether the SOPs are to be revised for every 2 years or 3 years, whenever there will be the change in the document, at that time the document shall be revised. So you will have to define and write in your SOP that when you are going to revise your document. The revision history should tell you the exact changes, what has happened and why the changes are happened. So in revision history you can tell that what are the revisions are made, but why the revisions are made, that might you will get in the change control, right? So in revision history you will have to write date and the changes and the change control number. In that you will write that why the changes have happened. So in this way the revision history must be available in the document. These were the few points. Another thing is that in any document you will have to ensure that data integrity principles to be followed. Data integrity should not be there. Documentation is very important, and you have to follow the good documentation practices. You have to do the online documentation, and you know that online documentation is always beneficial, not as per the guidance, plus for us also. For example, if you are doing some experiment and you are writing online, so it is very easy to write and document all the things. If for example you are doing any experiment or you are performing any activity and you have forgot to do the documentation, then after a few times you will not remember that what you have done. You have to rethink that what did you do or how did you do. So in that way you will have to remember the things, so it will be more difficult to do the documentation. This does not mean that not doing documentation online is acceptable. So there is some acceptance criteria that when you should do the documentation, right? So in this compliance tips, I am covering the basic things. You know, that you will tell that these are very basic things, but when we not follow the basic guidelines, then only the non-compliance happens, and these non-compliances are very critical. Later it may turn into 483, into warning letter and enforcement action. So whenever you do the documentation, follow the LQA plus principle. It is really make your life very easy, and you will be able to qualify the audit effortlessly. These were the compliance tips. Yes, with this, you do not forget to read my book Blue Ocean of Compliance. In that book, I have written the why regulatory inspections are happening, what are the enforcement actions, and what are the non-compliances, and why those non-compliances happen. And I have discussed many case studies of the 483. In fact, I have discussed 4 years 483. I have done the comparison of the 483, so you will get the detail that any specific 483, how many times it was observed, and for 4 years. Yeah, right, 4-year data I have presented, and I have also discussed the warning letter also. So do not miss to read my book Blue Ocean of Compliance, and also subscribe my YouTube channel, so that we will be talking about the CGMP topics. Even you won't know that how simply the CGMP principles are on your fingertips. So we will keep on talking in this Blue Ocean of Compliance tips show, and do not forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. Now Dr. Rupali Paranspe signing out until we meet again in Blue Ocean of Compliance tips. Thank you.